Well, folks, happy Monday. I sure hope your past week was better than mine, though if not, I'm sorry, and that's totally understandable considering the current circumstances. Now we are in one of those very busy astrological weeks with a ton of transits going on, so I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. There are definitely some big challenges on the horizon, but we also have a lot of potential here. We have a refreshing new moon in Aries. We have Mercury finally getting out of Pisces after so fucking long. And we're wrapping up this week with the shift into Taurus season. But for now, let's take a look here at Monday, April 13th. Early this morning, we had a Venus sextile to Jupiter from 16 degrees of Taurus to 16 degrees of Cancer. And there's a lot to like with a Venus-Jupiter sextile. This transit stimulates expansion of everything having to do with Venus, meaning everything relational. So maybe you're recalibrating your values, checking in on your finances, getting a boost of creativity, or just recharging with a little glimmer of pleasure. Most importantly, this transit is an opportunity to shore up connections. Y'all, we need each other so fucking badly right now with everything that's going on. And this Venus-Jupiter sextile gives us a chance to reaffirm our bonds, to deepen our relationships, to solidify community, to make sure our networks of support are in place. And this can help to bring us some of that grounded stability of Taurus and the nurturing safety of Cancer, which we could obviously really use these days and this week specifically. And the moon also moved into compassionate, dreamy, spiritual Pisces early this morning as well. Now tomorrow, Tuesday, April 14th, is a Mercury kind of day. First of all, we'll have Mercury forming a sextile to Uranus from the last half degree of Pisces to the last half degree of Taurus. You may remember Mars doing the same thing last week. And this is another supportive transit which can liberate our minds. It can help us to think for ourselves and communicate more authentically. Tuesday could be a good day for organizing, for example, or for learning a new skill. As revolutionary planet Uranus wraps up its 7-year stay in Taurus ending next week, it's really pressing us to carefully consider our foundational values. And Mercury's last hours in Pisces remind us of the value of compassion, interconnectedness, creativity, and spirituality. Now, since this fast-moving planet is right at the end of its sign, tomorrow evening, Mercury will move into Aries, completing a lap around the zodiac and adding yet another planet to this intense pileup of Aries energy. So we'll have the Sun, eventually the Moon, Mercury, Mars, Chiron, Saturn, and Neptune all in Aries. Now, Mercury usually only spends a few weeks in each sign, but because it went through a retrograde in Pisces, Mercury has been in the sign of the fishes since early February, which is a long-ass time for this planet. So, I'm hoping that the lack of clarity, the communication struggles, the mental soupiness and fogginess will kind of burn off as Mercury finally enters the sign of the Ram. This is such a powerful time to use our voices. Don't disempower yourself by assuming your voice is meaningless or that no one will listen to you. At least try to speak up for yourself and for what you believe in, because we can really, really amplify each other's voices right now. And I do like how this transit is coming on the heels of that sextile to Uranus, which echoes some of that mental courage and revolutionary curiosity of Mercury in Aries. But of course, this transit also means that we might experience even more of the anger and aggravation of Aries in terms of the information that we encounter. We may waste our energy getting into pointless arguments. We may perceive everything around us as a crisis or a threat. And to be fair, there are a lot of them out there right now. So we are really going to need to ramp up our discernment in terms of which battles are worth fighting with all this Aries energy, okay? Then, on Wednesday, April 15th, the moon will also move into bold, brave Aries on its way toward that new moon on Friday. But before then, we have Thursday, April 16th, which is a very intense day. So first, the sun has now moved toward the end of Aries, and so it'll be meeting up with Chiron, the wounded healer, forming a conjunction at about 26 degrees. This transit will put a big old spotlight on our pain, our suffering, our wounds. Great. But, this really reflects all of the harm and hurt that we're experiencing with the conflict and war and struggle of this Chiron and Aries era. We live in a capitalist society full of existential threats, a society that tries to make most of us feel like we don't deserve to thrive or even frickin' survive in this world that we were born into. That is a Chiron and Aries wound right there. So this Chiron and Aries journey is about bravely feeling past those scars of cynicism to reconnect with that spark of life that so many of us have lost touch with, that will to live and be free and fight to create the life we want for ourselves. So Thursday is a day to look into Chiron's toolkit. Avail yourself of any ways you have access to heal or soothe or care for those wounds, to expose them to the sun's light and warmth, to air them out and let them scab over, right? And while we're already engaging with that pain, we can try to alchemize it, to see what we can learn from it, how we can connect and empathize with others who are having similar experiences, because so many of us are right now, and that is powerful. Next up on Thursday, Mars will have moved to 5 degrees of Aries, and so it'll form a sextile to Pluto, which is crawling through 5 degrees of Aquarius. This transit is all about courage, you might not be surprised to hear me say. Mars is the warrior planet of bravery and risk, while Pluto is the planet of deep emotional courage, of vulnerability in life and death. So with these two hyping each other up, especially with Mars in its home sign of Aries, we can access more bravery. And the signs of Aries and Aquarius stimulate each other because both of them want freedom and liberation. Pluto in Aquarius means that there's this deep revolutionary undercurrent flowing through our world right now. And with Mars and Aries contacting that undercurrent, we can tap into that energy and act on it. We can challenge power structures and the state monopoly on violence. Whatever we do with this energy, it's a chance to bravely tackle our most urgent life or death priorities. Finally, here on Thursday evening, Mercury will have reached 2 degrees of Aries, and so it'll cross paths with Neptune in the form of a conjunction. This is almost like a last hurrah of that long journey of Mercury through Pisces that I was talking about, because Neptune is Pisces' ruling planet, right? So Thursday is a chance to make sure that we integrate the mental lessons of the last couple months, the compassion, intuition, spiritual connection, the dreams and visions for a better world that we were nurturing throughout all that Pisces energy. That said, Mercury conjunct Neptune, this is likely to be another tough transit because it can mean brain fog, mental confusion, wanting to just check out and escape from reality or from our feelings of anxiety. And in Aries, we can add some of that hot irritation and frustration into the mix, not hot in a good way, unfortunately, probably. So Thursday is a day to keep grounding yourself, to try to patiently take care of yourself and others, and to maintain clear boundaries around the media you consume, around the thoughts you let yourself ruminate on, and around the way that you communicate with others. Okay, on the morning of Friday, April 17th, we have our next new moon with the sun and moon meeting up at about 27.5 degrees of Aries, which is less than a degree away from our old buddy Chiron. That's right, Chiron is right up in the mix of this new moon. So this is a chance for an emotional fresh start around the themes that have been coming up this week with Chiron and with this whole glut of Aries planets. This is an opportunity to refresh our energy, to get grounded in our bodies, to get in touch with that vital spark I was talking about, to stoke the fires of bravery, audacity, assertiveness, action, risk, and desire, all these Aries things. As a cardinal fire sign, Aries teaches us how to take initiative, how to rise to the challenge, how to just fucking do the thing without hesitating or overthinking it. So those are the seeds we're planting here. And I think this new moon is an important opportunity to reclaim self-love, past all of the guilt and shame and self-doubt and wounding of Chiron. Because we live in this toxic, hyper-individualistic society, right? Which means that we all have a complicated relationship with the self. Some of us have been conditioned to be very selfish and short-sighted, basically to embody the pitfalls of Aries. That's kind of what privilege looks like in our society. And seeing how much damage that mindset does, many of us become afraid of embracing and advocating for our individual selves. We become disempowered and disconnected from ourselves. But remember, the overculture doesn't want you to advocate for yourself. Capitalism doesn't profit from you loving yourself. we're taught to hate ourselves and to mirror that hatred onto others. But this Aries new moon is a powerful chance to reclaim the self-love that we're all naturally born with and to reflect that onto others. Not an either me or you, but a both and, right? And since that Aries new moon occurred at the end of its sign, the moon will then move into steady, sensual, sensible Taurus just a few hours later on Friday. Now, on Saturday, April 18th, Mercury will continue chasing after Mars like it's been doing, and it'll form its own sextile to Pluto from 5 degrees of Aries to 5 degrees of Aquarius. This blends well with the other transits of the week, because a Mercury sextile to Pluto can help us to face challenging truths and to talk about them more easily, tapping into that Aries courage. This can help us to think more deeply about power, revolution, transformation. As Pluto stimulates our curiosity, we can keep working on that balance of staying informed about what's going on in the world without getting too distracted, overwhelmed, or paralyzed, which is going to help with the last challenging transit of the week that I'm about to get to. So, finally, for this week, on Sunday, April 19th, first the moon will move into quick, curious, conversational Gemini, and then Mars will form a conjunction to Saturn at just under 8 degrees of Aries. Yet again, we are ending this week on hard mode, folks. This is a challenging ass transit that astrologers have been bracing themselves for a while. See, Mars takes about 2 years to orbit around the zodiac, so it meets up with slowboat Saturn pretty regularly, but this is the first time it's happened in Mars's home sign of Aries since 1998, if you can believe it, over 28 years ago. So when Mars meets up with Saturn in Aries, shit will get even more real than it already fucking is. I'm sorry to say. You might feel like your energy or drive is just really dampened. There's a sense of hopelessness and despair you might experience. We may need to make hard choices and challenging sacrifices. We may need to set tough boundaries or deal with difficult restrictions. Things can get risky when conflictual active Mars meets up with stoic limiting Saturn, because when you're doing dangerous things while being really tense and rigid, you're likely to hurt yourself, right? So on Sunday, we need to remember to stay flexible, to bend rather than break, while still not compromising our most important goals, while trying to embody integrity and really focus on the task at hand, no matter how hard it is in the moment. That's Mars meeting up with Saturn for you. Now, I'm happy to say that the last transit of the week is one of my very favorite ones. I'm talking about the start of Taurus season, the sun moving into the sign of the bull here on Sunday evening. Now, one of the pitfalls of Taurus is being stubborn, conservative, not open to change. So that lesson I just mentioned about staying adaptable will continue with us through Sunday and for this whole coming month. But that stubbornness of Taurus, the fixed earth sign, can also be used for good. The sign of the bull can teach us to stand our ground, resting on our firm foundation of values, which is a big Taurian concept, right? And I think a lot of the problems we're facing right now as a society are really Taurus problems. Greedy people willing to destroy the planet for profit are experiencing a very twisted version of Taurian materialism, you could say. Conservative people, terrified of change or social progress, are experiencing a dark, twisted Taurian fear. And all of us who are longing for a time of simplicity, stability, sustainability, serenity, groundedness, connection to nature, and the peace to just enjoy the small, simple pleasures of life, we're longing for that higher frequency of Taurus. Some people are more misguided about what that can look like than others, of course. I'm not talking about going back to a time of arguably even worse oppression than we're experiencing right now. But as we shift into Taurus season, I'll just say, take Logan's advice and do some work in a garden. Connect with your people, with your animal friends, with the land you live on. Make sure you have access to basic necessities come what may. Shore up your foundations, because we're going to need them. And remember to make room for a little bit of sustaining, nourishing pleasure along the way, because that's a big part of Taurus too. Whew, okay, that is it for your astrological weather report for this week. I'm Alice Pope. Logan, back to you.